celebrate Canada Day. It ended with him being accused of killing Toronto police officer Jeffrey Northrup. Today, Umar Zamir is getting a chance to testify in his own defense. Greg Ross is covering the trial and joins us live now from the University Avenue Courthouse. Greg, what did Umar Zamir have to say today?
Well, Dwight, this was definitely a pivotal day in this trial. There's no doubt about it, because we got to hear from Umar Zamir in his own defense. It's not often in a murder trial we see a defendant come to the stand in his own defense, but the defense calling him as a witness today. We got to hear about him. We got to hear his voice for the first time today. He talked a little bit about his background, talked about the fact that he grew up in Pakistan. He talked about moving to Malaysia in 2015, where he met his wife, who we heard testify in this trial, Ada Sheikh. She was a classmate of his sister. They moved to Canada together in 2019. He said he came here for a better life. And this testimony went on right up into the day that all of this happened, back on July 1st and July 2nd of 2021. He talked about coming here on Canada Day that evening with his wife and their then 2-year-old son. His wife at the time was 8 months pregnant, came here to see if there was going to be any Canada Day celebration. They walked around the downtown area, and of course we got right up to that moment where he interacted with these police officers, including Jeffrey Northrup, who later on just after midnight on July 2nd died because of this incident. We didn't get to that incident just yet, but we did get to see Umar Zamir testify in front of this jury, and we're going to bring in a criminal defense lawyer to talk a little bit about this. I mean, obviously, it's not every day you see a defendant take the witness stand in his own defense. Were you surprised to see that the defense called Umar Zamir today?
The Crown has the obligation to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense does not have an obligation to give evidence. So in that sense, it's not common, or it's not the usual course for a defendant to take the stand in a criminal trial, although certainly we do see it. In this case, I would have expected it. We heard the evidence of, or rather the summary of evidence in the opening from the defense, and they did say that he was going to testify and that he was going to talk about what was going through his mind at the time of the event. So in that sense, we did expect it, but we're finally here, and he's finally giving his version of events to the jury.
I was really interested to watch how the jury reacted to his testimony today. He was only on the stand for about an hour and a half. He was called later in the afternoon. What did you make of the way he played to the jury?
We only heard about an hour, a little over an hour of his evidence, and most of the evidence was the events that led up to the moment that he and his wife and his toddler are actually inside the vehicle. But it really allowed the jury to hear what was going on that day, what the context was for these allegations. Mr. Zamir testified that he was there at Nathan Phillips Square to celebrate Canada Day, that he was looking forward to celebrating Canada Day with his family, that his young son was enjoying himself. He even talked about how at one point they were playing together, and when he talked about that, he got emotional. And so the jury could see that this really was a family man who was enjoying himself, that moments, the jury is going to now have to determine whether moments later he's going to inform the intent for murder. And so he was able to tell the jury really that he was just there to enjoy himself with his family.
They actually played multiple videos from that evening showing him walking around with his family, showing him playing a little game of hide and seek with his then 2-year-old toddler at the time. And you mentioned that moment where he gets emotional talking about just playing with his son. That's what made him emotional, just thinking about playing with his son that night. But now the burden of proof is on the Crown. They have to prove that he committed murder. How difficult is that going to be in this case?
The Crown in this case is trying to prove first-degree murder, and not in the context of a planned and deliberate murder. They're saying that he has the intent to kill, and that it's first-degree murder because it's in this special category of victim of a police officer. So the Crown has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Zamir either intended to kill the officer, or that he intended to cause bodily harm that he knew would cause the death of the officer, and that he was reckless that death would happen. So that's a very that's what the Crown has to prove. They have to prove that Mr. Zamir had the state of mind for murder. And when you look at the the surveillance video and you hear his testimony about how he was feeling before with his family, it's developing, in my view, to a difficult case.
It could be a very difficult case. Now, we only heard about an hour and 20 minutes or so of testimony. He will continue his testimony on Thursday. They're going to take tomorrow off for Eid, but he'll be back on the stand Thursday morning, and we could also expect some cross-examination that day as well, Dwight.
And we will be there covering it. Thank you for this, Greg.